Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Batman Beyond review series. And today I'm here once again to provide an audio commentary watch along for another episode from the show's first season. This time it's Heroes. So this is the show's attempt at introducing a Fantastic Four type of superhero team called the Terrific Trio, comprised of Magma, Freon, and 2D Man. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Fantastic Four. I have been for many years. They are probably my favourite team from the Marvel Universe. They're up there with the X-Men, but I've always leaned toward the Fantastic Four, probably just a little bit more. So I remember watching Heroes on CITV, which was 100 years ago. I remember watching this episode in particular, and for the most part, I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. Then, fast forward many years later, I did a rewatch of the entire show and all three seasons back in 2020. And I remember getting to this episode, and I remember still enjoying it quite a lot. But I felt that this episode was not terrible. It was okay, but I don't remember it being as strong. When you compare it to an episode like Golem, which I said before, while it wasn't the best, it wasn't one of the worst. I still enjoyed it a lot, but with Heroes, I felt the Terrific Trio were underdeveloped. Obviously, we did learn about how they got their powers, and you had this whole conspiracy about whether they were supposed to get their powers or not. Was it an accident or not? So I enjoyed that side of things for the most part. But compared to Golem, with a guy like Willie Watt, who was a bit more fleshed out, I found the Terrific Trio to be quite bland, to be honest. The only character out of the three who I found to be the most interesting was probably Magma, who was kind of like, the thing of their team. Freon was clearly supposed to be the Invisible Woman, and 2D Man was clearly supposed to be Mr. Fantastic. Now, if they added a fourth character to the mix, then they would have clearly been ripping off the Fantastic Four. Now, surprisingly, the Terrific Trio made only one appearance in the entire show's three-season run. I kind of expected to see them again. I did read somewhere a while ago that there were talks of possibly giving the Terrific Trio their own spin off series. I'm so glad they didn't, because spin off show, which was the Zeta Project, which I haven't seen. I don't really have any aspirations to see it. I've only seen the Batman Beyond crossover episodes, which were decent, but wasn't really something I would go out of my way to watch. But I'm kind of glad we didn't get a Terrific Trio spin-off series, because I don't think it would have been that good. Now, before we get into the watch along, I would have liked for the Terrific Trio, maybe they were inspired by Mr. Terrific, perhaps, hence the name the Terrific Trio. Maybe we could have had Mr. Terrific Beyond in the team. Now, if they had done that, that would have been really cool. I think they could have gone somewhere with that. But I don't know really. The the Terrific Trio, they're okay, but as I said, I found them to be a little bit on the bland side. As I said, Magma was probably the only interesting character out of the three. And I loved his look. He looked like a Clayface Beyond. So, big hulking guy with all the cracks, like lava cracks. That sort of character, that sort of look could have worked for Superman the animated series, with the whole dark side story arc. That would have been cool because maybe that sort of character could have worked for Darkseid, perhaps, because he had a really cool look. But the other two characters were kind of normal. But as I said, I enjoyed Heroes for what it was, but I wouldn't necessarily put it down as one of my favorites. It's certainly not as strong as Meltdown or Blackout or the Rebirth two-part episode. Those episodes are classics. But Heroes, is it bad? No. Is it good? No. Is it average? Probably. It's average. If I had to compare the two, I would probably say Heroes is better than Golem. But if I had to choose which was the better story, I probably would go with the Golem story as the better of the two. But that's just my opinion. Heroes is okay, but compared to Golem, at least Willie Watts was a bit fleshed out. I think Heroes was a bit on the weak side, but there's still some cool stuff. There's still some pretty enjoyable stuff. So, with that all said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it. Let's talk about Heroes. All right, here we go. Do, 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 do. And here we are, the Batman Beyond intro, which more than 20 plus years later still rocks to this day. So, Heroes, as I mentioned already, the first appearance of the terrific trio. And as I said already, I can kind of see why they didn't bring these guys back because, yeah, they didn't exactly set the world on fire. And I don't think they even appeared in the tie-in comics. So they couldn't have been that great. I would have thought at least they could have made an appearance in one of the tie-in comics. But hey ho, it is what it is. And still love seeing this intro. Still gives me chills. And here we go. Heroes. So, as I mentioned, this is the first and only appearance of the terrific trio. So we're kicking things off with a bang. We get a robbery at M Technologies, and we see a bunch of renegade criminals with jetpacks. Clearly the future. I love it. Not a chance. I think this is the only time I can recall Terry using a back grapple. So that's kind of cool. Don't know why he needs a back grapple. You can fly up to those guys. So anyway, so we're kicking things off with Terry going after these criminals with jetpacks. And yeah, this is a good opener. As I said, I remember this episode being pretty decent, and this is quite a cool opener. And speaking of cool, here is Freon. She's kind of like this ice ghost, so to speak. She's got freeze powers. What's your hurry, handsome? Yeah, she is kind of like Invisible Woman Beyond, so to speak. And here's Magma, clearly the team's thing. Yeah, he was probably my favourite of the trio. Hit him with a rock. And here's 2D Man, who is clearly supposed to be their Mr. Fantastic. So, the terrific trio have foiled the robbery and saved the day. Maybe Terry can have the night off and let these guys handle the dirty work in Gotham. Not if Bruce Wayne has anything to say about it. Scratch. Free losers. Cool. So, who are these guys come from? So we're going to find out very shortly. who these guys are. So we learn that the Terrific are doing an experiment in their lab and they get exposed to radiation. I'm sorry, but just watching these guys in spacesuits, it's definitely ripping off the Fantastic Four. You know, when they went up into space and get exposed to cosmic rays, it kind of reminds me of that a little bit, except they're not in the rocket ship. But yeah, bad origin story. I love how Matt McGuinness and his friend, they're like, oh, cool. And yeah, the 2D man, you see Freon, and then you see magma changing. Wow. Yeah, they're not bad. They're no Justice League, that's for sure. Yeah, I suppose these guys aren't too bad. And it's funny, Dr. Hodges is kind of like their friend. He clearly looks like a cross between BTAS Bruce Wayne and Superman. I love what Terry says here. Looks like I'll be having more time to do my homework now. We'll see. So we're now up to the GCPD with Commissioner Barbara Gordon. They're handling a ransom sort of situation involving a woman and her daughter. So, as I said, this episode was all right from what I remember, but there clearly wasn't a bad guy as such. Obviously, the Terrific Trio kind of went rogue a little bit. I think it was more a case of they just went mad because of their powers. I think that was more what the case was. So here come the Terrific Trio to the rescue. And I think this was kind of the moment where things started to sour for these guys. So they come to the rescue, and you can see the child absolutely terrified of magma. I mean, yeah, I suppose if you're a kid, if you see a big hulking guy walking through a door and melting it, I suppose you would be scared. But these guys are supposed to be the good guys, and we see Terrifico take out the thugs and disarm the bomb, and yeah, once again the Terrific Trio saved the day. But yeah, this is where things start to go a little bit wrong for these guys. And you can see Magma wanting to make sure the child is okay. And she says, "Oh, keep him away from me." And Commissioner Barbara Gordon's like, "We'll take it from here." And poor old Magma is like, "Yeah, right." Yeah, you got to feel a bit bad for him. It's very similar to the Thing. You know, the Thing. Although everyone loved the Thing, there was always a few people that were scared of him. Yeah, Magma just destroyed an entire police car. So look what he just did to the car. Well, you go and tell him. Oh hell no. So you could clearly see that as a getting, you know, disillusioned with their powers. Look at it. I can't even hold you in my arms anymore. Yeah, so you can see that these guys are kind of like a tragic team. You know, they've got powers, they're heroes, but at the same time, you know, they feel like these powers are a bit of a curse, so to speak. Clearly looks like Bruce Wayne from BTAS. He's got the hairstyle. It's kind of like a cross between Superman and the BTS design of Batman. Poor Magma. I feel bad for that guy. So there's Dr. Hodges meeting the general. So clearly there's something going on here. So just give them time to come around. For your sake, they better. Yikes. Now, this next scene. So we've got Terry and Matt McGuinness. They're at the mall. And you could clearly see, Matt McGuinness, he's not really into the Terrific that much. You can see he likes Batman more. Oh, those guys rip. Batman's the best. You think Batman's cool? Big time. And I love the fact that Matt doesn't know that his big brother is secretly Batman, and Terry's like, "How about an ice cream soda? My treat." And Matt's like, "Oh, cool. What's the catch?" So we learn here that the Terrific Trio and their powers, it's causing their cells to break down. And Dr. Hodges is like, "Has anyone seen this yet?" "No, sir." "Then run them again. We have to be absolutely sure." So clearly, these powers that the Terrific Trio received was not really supposed to be a long-term thing. So clearly, there's some double crossing going on here. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, whole conspiracy that I liked about whether or not the Terrific Trio were meant to get their powers or not. But as I said, it was okay. Someone's clearly taken out one of the scientists. And I like what Terry says here. Don't know why I'm out of patrol. Not with the Terrific Trio running around. Oh, something's going on here. So clearly, Terry goes to see what's going on at BR Technologies, and this is where he runs into Magma. So this is more the shift of the Terrific Trio slowly turning rogue. But I never looked at them as bad guys. I think it was just a case of they just became disillusioned with their powers, because while it was great at first, after a while, it's like, are these powers all that cracked up to be? And Terry's like, "Oh, Magma, working solo tonight," and Magma just clearly knocks out Terry. And Terry's like, "And I thought you were one of the good guys." So, wow, here we go. So, Terry's trying to stop Magma, who broke into the security and stole the cube, which gives them information about their powers. Yeah. As I said, this ain't bad. It's not as bad as I remembered. As I said, I enjoyed this for what it was, but I don't know really. I'm quite amazed Magma is even flying that ship, because I would have thought the controls would have melted at least. But hey, maybe it's heat proof. I don't know. So Terry's in the Terrific Trio's headquarters. I mean, come on, it's not the Baxter building. Clearly not. So we get to where the Terrific Trio learn the truth about their powers. So they see that their DNA is breaking down. So 2D Man's like, "We'll be like this forever." And Magma's like, "No, it's much worse than this." So it looks like it's essentially killing them. And the military have double crossed the Terrific Trio. So this is where I was trying to get at, that the Terrific Trio, they're not really the bad guys. They go crazy, not evil, so to speak. So that is a cool ship, I must say. That is a cool ship. And no, he's not clearly inspired by General Ross. Or is he? I don't know. So, yeah, so they've essentially gone after the trio's headquarters. As I said, this wasn't a bad episode. It was pretty good. Boom, boom. Nice. Wow. Now, here, this moment coming up here. Here we go. We're just going to watch this bit here. So, the whole building falls down on Terry, and Terry lifting up the whole building, all the rubble, so to speak, kind of reminds me of a classic Spider-Man comic, where he's trapped and he just uses all of his strength to lift up the rubble. That's what it reminds me of here with Batman, just lifting it up. Very cool. I think, you know, as much as this episode is heavily inspired by the Fantastic Four, I probably would say that some of it is a little bit inspired by Spider Man, as you can see, with Terry lifting up all of the rubble. Cool. Here we go. Yeah, this is it. So he just lifts it up, uses all his strength. Spider Man has arrived. Yeah, like I said, this is a pretty decent episode. I forgot how intense this episode was, and that's something I forgot to mention earlier. This episode quite intense, and some moments of this episode was a little bit dark. In fact, the whole show was pretty dark. Especially when you get to the later episodes. I mean, some of it was downright scary. But here, the terrific trio are making their escape, and the military are going after them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's good stuff. Nice. Okay. I like how, just like in the Golem episode, Bruce Wayne is still part of the show, but a couple of these episodes, Bruce is still, he takes a bit of a step back. So I think that's good, which it allows Terry to become his own man. So he's not just playing the part of Batman for Bruce, he is his own Batman, no pun intended. So I think it works so. And I think overall it works very well for the story because Terry is still learning how to be a hero, and having these episodes where he's featured more prominently helps flesh out his character, in my opinion. And here we have the terrific trio questioning Dr. Hodges about, whether or not the powers they received were accidental. And then we see them starting a chain reaction. So, yeah, I think what it was with the terrific trio, they started out with good intentions, and once they the reasons why they received their powers, yeah, you can see why they would go that way. And Dr. Hodges more or less confirmed that he hoped that Magma is out of the way, he could have Freon for himself. Yeah, yeah. So Dr. Hodges turned out not to be the good guy we thought. Wow. Here we go. So Batman versus the Terrific Trio. Here we go. I love this. This fight scene was actually pretty good. from what I remember. Ouch. Even Bruce is like, oh, that's gotta hurt. Oh, hot foot, hot foot. So we're going from hot to cold to getting stretched. Ow. Yeah, this was a pretty good scene. Now, this next scene that's coming up, the way these guys are defeated is quite brutal, which we'll get to in a moment. So, Terry turns on the emergency evacuation system. Oh boy. So, the fan extractor shreds 2D man. Yuck. And Freon gets, just sucked up and disappears. I'll tell you what, I know Terry doesn't actually kill anyone in that sense, but the way some of these characters gets taken out, it's just brutal. It really is. And Terry's trying to Magma, look, you don't want this. You're a hero, remember? Come on, think about this. So Terry's trying to get Magma to see sense here. Magma's like, no, you stay. I want you to see this. Wow. So Terry does a bit of improvising, uses the old fire hose. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. And hiya! Nice. So that's how he defeated Magma. So he just pretty much dried him out. So Terry manages to abort the chain reaction. And this is a bit of a chilling way to end this episode. Satisfied? No, you don't understand. I was their friend. And Terry just very coldly walks off and says, yeah, right. Sure you were. Wow. And that wraps up my audio commentary watch along for Heroes. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good episode. I think this episode, it was good for the most part. It was a little bit weak. It was decent. It's not terrible, but I don't think it would go down as one of the show's best. Golem, while it wasn't great either, at least Willie Watts was a little bit fleshed out. The Terrific Trio, they're okay. As I said earlier, there's probably a good reason why they didn't bring these guys back because, as I said, they weren't great. But hey ho, what can you do? But yeah, I enjoyed this for what it was. But I think some of episodes of Batman Beyond came after this one. But as I said, Heroes, not the greatest, but not the worst either. All right, but still watchable, in my opinion. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on Heroes? Did you enjoy it? What was your thoughts on the Terrific Trio? Did you like them? Would you have liked to have seen them brought back for another episode? Or were you satisfied with what we got? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Batman Beyond review series, where I will be back with another audio commentary watch along. This time it is going to be Dead Man's Hand, which I'm very much looking forward to talking about as it features the Royal Flush Gang. So make sure you don't miss that. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.